Welcome back to another custom-tailored deep dive. We are so glad to have you with us again. We always love diving into these with you, the learner.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We've got a really interesting one today.
We really do. So, learning a new language is, it's kind of a lot like moving into a furnished house.
Oh, I like that. A furnished house.
Right. Like one that was built by millions of strangers over, hundreds of years. You walk through the front door, and at first everything seems pretty functional.
Sure, yeah, you see a chair, you sit in it.
Exactly. There's a door, you walk through it. But the longer you live there, the more you start to notice the strange hidden logic of the architecture.
Right, like finding a staircase that just leads to a blank wall or something.
Yeah. Or realizing you have to turn the kitchen faucet to the left twice before the hot water actually comes on.
Yeah,
And when you ask the locals why the house is built this way, they just shrug and say, that's just how it is.
which is incredibly frustrating for a learner.
It really is. But today we're looking at a fascinating script excerpt from an English learning program called EnglishBridge. Specifically, this is episode 11, originally hosted by Sara and Tom. And looking at their notes, those weird quirks aren't accidents at all.
No, they really aren't.
They're actually architectural blueprints. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack 5 common fossilized errors that even intermediate students make. These are the mistakes that can inadvertently make you sound like a beginner.
And, while the source material is targeted at beginner to intermediate learners, the reasons behind these mistakes are they're fascinating.
Right.
It's so easy to treat language as just a utilitarian tool, right?
Yeah.
Like just a way to get what you want at the grocery store or to send an email.
Just moving data around.
Exactly. But when you look at these specific fossilized linguistic habits that trip up non-native speakers, you stop seeing just a list of arbitrary grammar rules.
Yeah.
You start to see a very rigid psychological framework. They offer these amazing aha moments about the hidden logic of the English language itself.
I love that. So here is the roadmap for where we're going today. We're going to unpack how English handles age, the mechanics of sharing information, the nuances of agreeing with people, the difference between doing and creating, and finally, how we talk about groups of individuals.
It's a great list.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're kicking off with mistake number 1, which is how we state our age.
Oh, this is a big one.
It really is. Sara and Tom point out the common error from the source, which is saying, I have 25 years.
Right, instead of I am 25 or I am 25 years old.
Yeah. And I mean, in many other languages, age is treated like a physical object you carry around, like having 25 rocks in a backpack.
Yes, exactly. In Spanish or French, you literally say you have it the years.
But the EnglishBridge source explicitly says that in English, age is a state of being. So why is it that English forces us to embody the number rather than just, possess it?
What's fascinating here is that the shift from having to being completely alters the philosophical perspective of the sentence.
How so?
Well, if you have 25 years, those years are separate from you. They're a possession. You've accumulated them, almost like wealth or inventory.
Right, like they're sitting in a bank account.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But by requiring the verb to be, English treats age not as a currency you've collected, but as an intrinsic quality of your current existence. You don't possess the time. You literally are the time.
Wow. Which implies a level of transience, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because if I have a book, I can put it on a shelf and just keep it forever. But if I am 25, that's just a temporary state, just like being hungry or being tired. I don't have tiredness. I am tired. And soon I will be something else.
That is a crucial distinction. English demands that you embody the number. It forces the speaker to constantly update their state of existence.
So when a learner says, I have 25 years, it sounds off to a native speaker.
Right. The native English ear recoils a bit because the underlying philosophy is mismatched. The listener is expecting a declaration of existence, but the speaker is offering a statement of inventory.
They're trying to show what's in their backpack, basically.
Yeah, but the language demands they show who they fundamentally are in that moment.
Okay, so if English forces us to treat our age as a state of existence, it makes sense that it's equally picky about how we communicate that existence to others.
Naturally. Once we establish our state of being, we have to talk to other people about it.
Which naturally leads to the verbs of communication. This is mistake number 2, the classic confusion between say and tell.
Oh, yeah. The source has a great example for this.
It does. It's a painful one. She said me the truth.
Ouch. Yeah.
Right. And the EnglishBridge rule is very specific here. It says, you tell a person, but you say a thing. Therefore, it has to be she told me or she said the truth.
Exactly.
Oh, wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Aren't telling a person and saying a thing practically the exact same action? I mean, you are opening your mouth, your vocal cords vibrate, and words come out. Why does English demand two entirely different verbs based purely on the target of those words?
It's a fair question. Mechanically, you are right. The action is exactly the same. But grammatically, the source creates a strict divide between the audience, the person being told, and the content, the thing being said.
Okay, so it separates the who from the what.
Yes. And this distinction forces you to prioritize either the human connection or the factual information in your sentence structure.
So you have to make a choice before you even speak.
You do. You have to perform a kind of conversational triage. When you use tell, the grammatical spotlight shines directly on the recipient. She told me. The human connection is the priority.
The actual truth that was transferred takes a backseat.
Right. But when you use the verb say, that spotlight swings completely away from the audience and locks onto the factual information. She said the truth. The content is the only thing that matters.
So that's why she said me the truth sounds so jarring.
Yeah, it's a structural incompatibility. You're trying to cram a human connection, the me, into a verb that was engineered strictly to hold cold, hard facts.
Wow, okay, so communication is definitely a two-way street. Once someone tells you something or says a truth, you have to respond to it.
You can't just stare at them blankly.
Right. And that brings us to mistake number 3, which is agreeing with negative statements using me neither.
Yes, the nuance of agreement.
The EnglishBridge script outlines this perfectly. For a positive sentence like, I love coffee, you agree with me too. But for a negative sentence like, I don't like rain or I don't like coffee, you must use me neither.
It seems simple on the surface, but it trips up so many learners.
It really does. It's like, okay, think of it like English has two different mirrors.
Yeah, okay, I'm flowing.
E2 reflects light, positive statements. But if someone hands you a negative statement, you can't use the to mirror. It just breaks. You have to pick up the neither mirror to reflect it back.
That is a brilliant analogy, and it really connects to the bigger picture here. The source specifically warns against the trap of using me too as a universal agreement tool.
Because you can't just passively nod along.
Exactly. In a lot of languages, you can just offer a universal sound of agreement regardless of the sentence structure. But English requires the listener to actively process whether the initial statement was an affirmation or a negation before they're even allowed to agree with it.
So you have to actively identify the polarity.
Yes. You have to hold the entire structure of their sentence in your working memory, spot the negative word like don't, and then reach for the correct mirror, as you said. It demands active participation in the speaker's grammatical reality.
It proves you're actually paying attention.
Exactly.
So bridging the gap from passive agreement to active engagement, moving from what we like or dislike into how we actually act in the world. This brings us to mistake number 4. The notorious do versus make trap.
Oh, the bane of every English learner's existence.
Truly, so I pulled the exact rule from the script. It says make is for creating or producing something new, like making a cake, while do is for tasks, obligations, and repetitive work, like doing homework.
That's the classic rule of thumb.
So, according to this rule, doing sounds almost like a chore, while making sounds like art.
It really does, yeah.
If I'm an English learner trying to memorize this, is the secret simply asking myself if I'm completing an obligation or birthing something new into the world?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is exactly what you should do. The grammar is absolutely categorizing human effort here.
It's drawing a line.
Yes, a very clear line between maintenance and creation. When the EnglishBridge notes say you do homework, they are highlighting the mundane, repetitive nature of tasks.
Like doing the dishes, you do them, they get dirty, you do them again.
Right. It's a cyclical loop. When you finish, you haven't really added a brand new entity to the universe. You've just maintained the status quo.
But making is different.
Very different. Making is generative. When you make a cake, you are taking raw ingredients and producing an entirely new entity that did not exist before you took action. English divides our efforts into just maintaining our lives versus actually creating within them.
So the verb you choose actually dictates the existential weight of your effort. That is so wild.
It is, and it's a lot to think about mid-conversation.
It really is. Okay, so whether we are doing chores or making cakes, we rarely do these things entirely alone.
Very true.
Which brings us to our final mistake today, the actors performing these actions. Mistake number 5 concerns irregular plurals for individuals.
Persons versus people.
Exactly. The source explains that many students incorrectly say two persons, but according to Sarah and Tom, the plural of person in daily, natural conversation is always people. Persons is strictly reserved for legal or very formal English.
And this is where we see how sensitive English is to context.
Right. Let me try an analogy here. I feel like persons is wearing a stick suit in a courtroom, while people is wearing comfortable jeans hanging out in daily conversation.
I love that, and it aligns perfectly with the source's directive to keep it natural.
Because nobody talks like a legal document at a dinner party.
Exactly. English isolates formal, legal existence with the word persons, and it separates that from the collective, everyday human interaction of people.
It strips away the warmth.
It does. Persons is a sterile, bureaucratic word. You see it on elevator capacity signs or in police reports looking for persons of interest. It isolates individuals. But people implies community and shared experience.
So using persons in a casual setting isn't just a grammar mistake, it's almost like a social mismatch.
It is a stark reminder of how context dictates vocabulary. You are projecting the cold language of an elevator sign onto a warm social gathering.
Wow. Okay, looking back at this stack of notes from EnglishBridge, the aha moments are just incredible.
They really are. It completely shifts how you see the rules.
We've covered so much. We realized that age is a state of being, not something you carry in a backpack. We saw how communication is divided by saying facts and telling people.
We learn to mirror negative agreements actively.
Yes. And we separated maintenance chores from creative sparks with do and make. And finally, we learned to leave the stiff suit of persons in the courtroom and just hang out with people.
It's a completely different way to view the language.
It really is. And, the original EnglishBridge script ends on a really great note. Sarah asks the learners, how many of these fossilized errors were you still making?
It's a great question for self-reflection.
Definitely. It encourages you to really think about your own communication habits.
And it leaves us with a really provocative thought derived from all these underlying themes.
Oh, what's that?
Well, think about it. If English forces us to actually be our age rather than just have it,
Right.
and if it requires us to change our very vocabulary when we move from formal persons to everyday people, how much does the grammar we use subtly shape whether we view our daily lives as a series of legalistic obligations and tasks or as a shared generative state of being?
Oh, wow. That's something to chew on.
It really makes you wonder who is shaping who.
It does. Well, that is all we have for today's deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one.